It was a G.I. Jane joke.
Keep my wife's name out your mouth.
I'm going to, okay?
The Academy Awards on ABC with the Will Smith and Chris Rock altercation. Jessica Chastain winning Best Actress and Coda winning Best Picture. America is listening to Fox News.
Back at it again with the Lenten season menu with Mezcla, giving you a variety of food you can enjoy and pick from, like the fish tacos, spicy buttered shrimp, parrotfish escabeche, lobster pad capral pasta, crab-crusted Chilean sea bass, and more. There you have options. Offered at Hagåtña location for lunch and dinner only at Mezcla. For reservations, call 671-479-2652. What are you waiting for? Let's go celebrate the Lenten season with Mezcla.
Fifty-year-old Taylor Hawkins, the popular drummer of the rock group The Foo Fighters, was found dead in his South American hotel room Friday.
The sudden death of the world-famous drummer has rocked the music world. On Tuesday, Hawkins was surrounded by fans outside of a hotel in Argentina, and he was scheduled to play in Bogota, Colombia. In a statement released by the Colombia prosecutor's office, preliminary toxicological tests showed Hawkins had 10 different substances in his system, including THC, opioids, and benzodiazepines. Authorities say they are still investigating the official cause of death. The band released a statement saying, quote, "The Foo Fighters family is devastated by the tragic and untimely loss of our beloved Taylor Hawkins."
Fox's Christina Coleman in Los Angeles. Musicians ranging from Ringo Starr to Miley Cyrus have reached out to give their condolences. With over half of refugees from Ukraine coming to Poland, a church there is doing what they can to help.
A small church in Poland started just 6 years ago. Today, it is uniquely positioned to help Ukrainian refugees pouring into the country. But it's a struggle. Sashko Netzamutinov is desperate for funds to help his church care for the stream of Ukrainian refugees pouring across the border into Poland. Because the congregation is bilingual, they can help translate government paperwork. The church has also set up temporary beds and even a drop-off center for donations. Sashko was scheduled to be ordained in May in Ukraine, but that has been postponed while he and the church minister to people in need. In New York, Lauren Green, Fox News.
Dollywood closing one of their rides out of an abundance of caution. The Dropline ride, developed from the same manufacturer as the Orlando Freefall ride at Icon Park, the ride which 14-year-old Tyrese Sampson fell off from and died Thursday night. I'm Laura Cantor, and this is Fox News.
When the pandemic first started and we had no idea that it was going to affect our business till March of 2020. Orders from public health, roadblocks, restriction. It was a very hard time for me. What really has saved my business is the SBA and the PPP program. I felt keeping the employees was so important because I had faith that my government would help me later, the federal government. We applied and we received 2 PPP loans equaling up to $425,000. That money saved me because it's been 2 years. I think 80 or 90% of the restaurants have closed. The only reason I'm here because of my devoted clientele and the federal government.
Thank you for helping save jobs with federal funds. Thank you to the federal government for all the federal ARP money.
Thank you for the federal funds.
This ad was paid for with official funds from the office of Congressman Michael F.Q. San Nicolas.
Half a day. This is Jade Uggan from Security Title. And in celebration of Tomorrow Month, here is a tip on dealing with your land. You might be thinking of giving part of your property to your child or another family member. Once you have subdivided the property and recorded the map, you will also need to record the deed transferring the title. Just drawing the map is not enough to make sure they actually own the land. Protehi I Tanonmu. When it comes to your family land, call the professionals at Security Title. We are here to help.
Hey, what did the grilled cheese sandwich say to their date?
What'd they say?
You make me melt.
Oh, so cheesy.
But not as cheesy as Subway's latest Eat Fresh Refresh menu innovation. The new Fresh Melts with 3 times the cheese. Fresh Melts are the cheese lover's holy grail. Fresh Melts combine freshly baked breads and your favorite meats topped with a triple load of cheese. All grilled to warm, toasty perfection. Try the ham and cheese melt, tuna melt, or steak and cheese melt to start. Best of all, you can make any footlong into a fresh melt. At Subway, eat fresh.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Man, I got here just in time. It started coming, percolating out of my brain housing group as I was getting out of the car, and I could just barely hang on to it until I got in front of this microphone and let it go. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. What a wonderful piece of literary work, the Second Amendment to the United States Constitution. So here we are. The very best time of any week is right now. We're just 8 minutes into the week. That means we've got almost a complete 5 days of tall tales ahead of us. Jose and I couldn't be happier, right, Jose?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, all right. Well, let's start out here with Demi Ikotny. It used to be one of the easiest parts of the program. I'd grab the editorials from each of the papers. I would analyze them on the air. I'd use my blue pencil here, look for grammatical errors in the use of English, faulty theories advanced in the editorial. And then when I would judge the better of the two, I would give it the coveted blue star. Nowadays, it's turned into something almost like a treasure hunt. Can you find an editorial in these papers?
Well, what happened during the post meeting was they realized, because they listened religiously to Tall Tales, and they weren't getting the blue star. So they said, we have to fix this. We're going to stop writing editorials.
That'll show, Klitzkie. Yeah.
There you go.
That'll show, Bob. We'll just stop writing them, yeah. All right, so I'll start out here with the Daily News, and I can't even get past the title before I know that they're not paying attention. Here's the title: Our View, Marble Cave Settlement, an opportunity for, tie a string around this word, transparency. So the editorial is about transparency. The fines levied and collected by government regulatory agencies generally serve two purposes. The first is to financially mitigate harm to the public and our resources by imposing fines and solutions to repair what was broken. The second purpose is punitive. Regulations and consequences must be set and understood by all. Do business the right way, or there will be a significant price to pay. In August 2021, the Guam Environmental Protection Agency issued a notice of violation, and the Office of the Attorney General filed a lawsuit against Samsung and Korea Electric after a lack of proper erosion and settlement controls led to sludge contamination at Marble Cave. Additionally, the contractor's license board voted to fine the company $25.5 million. All right, here we go. However, during the March 16 meeting, the board charged, as you were changed, the $25.5 million fine to a $300,000 settlement. Gee, why would they do that?
Wrong.
I read the article 3 or 4 times. I couldn't figure out why they did that. And actually, of course, the reason that they did that is the last word in the headline of their stupid editorial. Transparency. Yeah, because when they noticed up their meeting for the $25 million, they didn't comply with the open government law. Nice editorial here about transparency, guys. So then they go on to say, during the March 16th meeting, the board changed the fine to $300,000 settlement. Contractors License Board Acting Executive Director Linda Ibanez told board members during the meeting that Samsung offered to settle the case for $250,000. Her recommendation was $300,000. Quote, in good faith, Samsung had come to the government and apologized. Whoa. They're doing their cleanup. They have this whole crew in. They're working to accept the responsibility. Ibanez said both the government and contractor are working in good faith. This is important, I guess. This sounds kind of like the Angel Sablon approach to making recommendations for the sentencing of the mayor of Jonia, Mayor Blas. Well, he's like a brother to me. He's a good guy. Settling before costly legal battles sometimes serves the government's best interest. We understand we aren't always privy to the machinations of calculating and imposing fines. But there's no denying a $300,000 settlement is a stark contrast to a $25.5 million fine. The only difference is one's legal and the other one's not. Now is a good opportunity for the Contractors License Board to practice transparency, finally. We support its efforts and commend the quick action taken, but allowing the public to see mitigation and settlement agreements could go a long way toward improving public trust in government. We support renewable energy solutions for power production on Guam, most especially with volatile fuel costs and increasingly expensive power bills. But the island must make it clear to all, contractors, developers, and corporations, that environmental destruction, accidentally or not, will not be taken lightly. If you attempt that, we'll turn you into Sabina Paris. A fate worse than death. All right, so much for the day. No blue star today.
So the original, the article that you had gone over, explaining the reason why they had to go, or they had to dismiss the $25 million.
Yeah.
Was that published in the PDN or the Post?
Yeah, of course, both
the PDN,
papers. Yeah,
both papers.
Yeah.
I guess the editorial board doesn't read any of their papers.
They know better than to read the Daily News. Yeah. And maybe they didn't, maybe the Post wasn't delivered that day, so they kind of got shut out of that story. Okay, and as usual, the Post is still on, editorial board is still on strike. And just like last Monday, Lee Weber has written an editorial quality column in the Post. Of course, that shouldn't surprise anyone, since Lee Weber was at one time the publisher of the Daily News and had certain input into the editorial policy of that paper. I can't resist saying those were the good old days. And a little background here before we get into this article. I mean, this column. Last Friday, there was an item on the card, Carl versus GVB. GVB President Gutierrez excuses board of illegal, unethical acts. And that's pretty much what Lee Weber homes in on. And Carl Gutierrez, former Governor Carl Gutierrez, certainly did that. He accused them of illegal acts. That was the Daily News headline. The Post, GVB boss calls out board, alleges special interest. So it was quite a scramble at the GVB board meeting. Here's Weber's editorial. Keep government boards fair and professional. Guam is perched on the cusp of economic recovery and success or continued weakness and the potential for greater economic failure. If we fail to fully realize that the fulcrum of the island economy is a combination of tourism and the U.S. military, this island will suffer economically for such thinking. It all revolves around solid political selections to lead the community toward an open and transparent government. The most recent bickering between Governor Gutierrez and the board of directors at the Visitors Bureau is a good example of government dysfunction. No specific violations of law were made nor explained during the accusations. Only generalities were used as the point of argument. In point of fact, in some instances, it may well have been a bit of the, quote, pot calling the kettle black. Can you say that nowadays, Jose?
I don't know. I'm not an entomologist.
I think what you meant is you don't know because you're not a food service technician. You're not a chef, right?
There you go.
Yeah. Rather, a broad, sweeping rant about the violation of laws and vested personal interests on part of the board members by the presiding president was used as the basis for the discussion. A man with his background knows better than to make such sweeping public accusations without the use of substantive individual proof to back up his statements, unless, of course, it was political rhetoric rather than fact. The entire fiasco was reminiscent of children arguing about whose dog could beat the others, whose father was tougher than the others, or who lived in a nicer house than any of the others. The vast majority of public boards are made up of people who are political appointees, many of whom have neither board nor specific field expertise, but who will do the bidding of the person, whoever that might be, who appointed them. The best boards are usually made of a cross-section of people who have a wide and deep knowledge of their respective fields as it relates to the work of the board. Some of those board members will at times also be actively working in some of those fields. During subject public discussions, the people with those particular arrays of background can plant some very fertile seeds of knowledge for the balance of the less knowledgeable members. Yeah, that kind of reminds me of Adrian Cruz on the Cannabis Control Board. Talk about planting seeds. He was an expert on manure. I think there was a great fertilization of the thought-making process there. Then when it comes to actual voting on the subjects, any members with a vested interest, but broad-based knowledge, should respectfully recuse themselves from voting and leave the room so as not to create the appearance of a conflict of interest. That said, having the opportunity to have such knowledge actively working on such board cannot be replaced by simple political appointees, in most cases, without causing the planting and growth of bad decisions for the entity and the community organization as a whole. I seriously doubt that anyone who has ever been or will be a governor, senator, judge, or any other public official or senior head of any department or agency has never violated a law of one form or another from one degree to another. I got to confess, Jose. Yeah, about 30 years ago, we bought a new mattress. And as I was putting it, trying to get it mounted on the bed, I just didn't like the look of the tags, of that tag on the mattress. So I tore the tag off the mattress. I hope the statute of limitations is run on that. Yeah.
I'm calling this hotline.
Yeah, a law-abiding citizen would never tear the tag off a mattress. Yeah. And I'm, and on my own behalf, I help little old ladies across the street. I never double park. I don't waste paper, so I hope there's some hope for me. Yeah, there we go. Back to the edit to the column. There are much better and more professional ways to resolve such situations than making a public scene and throwing accusations onto the floor of a public meeting that lack accuracy and substance. That is especially from a former governor. I suppose professionalism and objectivity is getting harder and harder to come by these days. Wow. So Lee Weber didn't pull any punches on that one, did he? Yeah, so that's the kind of thing that I look for when I read editorials. I can always find some other way to make myself feel good, than to read the pap that passes for editorials in some of these papers.
But we still want to know, was that whole rant at the meeting old business or new business?
That's the important thing. And by the way, good point, Jose. When Carl Gutierrez accused people of violating the open government law, and if you've been following along, you know that the Guam Visitors Bureau is a serial violator of the open government law because they can't get the notices of meetings right. They always flub the agenda. It's just not that hard, but they continually do it. Perhaps that's a case of the pot referring to the blackness of the kettle. Maybe. Maybe that's what Lee Weber had in mind. All right, so I got some other stuff here coming up here on the agenda. Let me see here. Yeah, I guess we've all kind of been following the Ketanji Brown Jackson confirmation hearings, and I understand that Ketanji Brown Jackson has actually put out a curriculum for people who want to be confirmed to the Supreme Court, and the curriculum is instructive as to how to behave oneself.
It's been going around, and I actually have a copy of it here, Bob.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's a couple of really good questions.
Okay, well, so it's a question-answer type thing?
Let's see if you pass.
It's sort of like this: if a senator asks you this question, this is the answer you should have?
You used to sit on the bench, so hopefully you can pass these questions.
Well, I'll give it my best shot. Thanks, Jose. Go ahead.
Okay, the first one, Bob, is, does Carlo Gutierrez have a lot of guts to take on the GVB board?
A lot of guts?
Mm-hmm.
How should I know, Jose? I'm not an internist.
You pass.
Okay.
Number 2. Does Michael Bavacqua employ critical race rhetoric in his columns?
How should I know, Jose? I'm not Robert Underwood.
Okay. Man, you're doing well. You're doing very well. And last, not last, but just to wrap this up to give you a good idea, is Hope Cristobal so angry at Paul Zerzan?
Why is Hope Cristobal so angry at Paul?
Why is she?
Yeah. How should I know, Jose? I'm not a psychiatrist.
You're hired, Bob. You're hired.
Yeah. Well, I think I need more work. We'll work on it a little bit more tomorrow, okay?
There's a study guide.
Yeah. And, when I heard about this curriculum, I had an overpowering desire to limerick again, even though I'm not Andrew Camacho. So it goes kind of like this. It's called KBJ on the left. And it goes like this. Ketanji may become a supreme. Today, she's a popular meme. A woman is what? About sex she forgot? She'll embrace the leftist regime. Yeah. And here I am doing talk radio with talent like that, Jose.
So if she was Chamorro and she had these two different cross viewpoints, would her name be Ketanji? Did I say that correctly?
Ketan?
Ketan.
Ketan Z? Ketan. Yeah. Imatanya, so
she can't give a straight answer.
Yeah, she. No, hey, Ketanzi, stop looking at me. If you are looking at me.
I'm not an optometrist.
Okay. All right. So then we've got a card for today. And, of course, we've got Paul Zerzan versus systemic racism. And today we're adding to that Paul Zerzan, the whistleblower. Uh-huh.
This is good.
Yes. And, of course, the honor roll for Public Law 36-34. I've got to go back to the 19th floor. Just when you think it's safe to leave, they pull you back in. I've got Brown and Tello versus irresponsibility. Brown and Tello. Even a broken clock, Jose. Yeah. I've got the Post versus accuracy. GWA versus poor people. Yeah, I'm sticking up for poor people.
Versus.
Yeah. And SHRM versus human resources. Now, SHRM stands for Society for Human Resources Management, and they're actually taking an anti-human resources position, which I will explain. And then I've got Democrats versus Ted Cruz, plus Tall Tales versus KBJ. I have decided I am adamantly against the confirmation of Ketanji Brown Jackson. And then I've got USA Today versus Nature, and some stuff that's been on the card for quite a while that I don't know if I'll ever get to. But in any case, let's start out with taking a break, right?
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at GuamTraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts, brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
When the pandemic first started and we had no idea that it was going to affect our business till March of 2020. Orders from public health, roadblocks, restriction. It was a very hard time for me. What really has saved my business is the SBA and the PPP program. I felt keeping the employees was so important because I had faith that my government would help me later, the federal government. We applied and we received 2 PPP loans equaling up to $425,000. That money saved me because it's been 2 years. I think 80 or 90% of the restaurants have closed. The only reason I'm here because of my devoted clientele and the federal government.
Thank you for helping save jobs with federal funds. Thank you to the federal government for all the federal ARP money.
Thank you for the federal funds.
This ad was paid for with official funds from the office of Congressman Michael F.Q. San Nicolas.
We now return to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, soaring over the confusion with his superpowers of truth. Call 888-TALK. That's 888-8255.
Okay, well, here we are, Tall Tales Monday. That means it's Red Shirt Monday. And I want you guys out there in our international radio listening audience to check out the color of my shirt. That is a red shirt.
100%.
Absolutely. And if I find anybody who says that Bob was wearing a red shirt on Monday, I'll wash his mouth out with soap. So that's part of the systemic racism that Paul Zerzan brought to us. Here we have a picture of the food that's served at every fiesta that I've ever been to. It's a platter of rice that is orange in color, but everyone refers to as red rice. So our friend Paul Zerzan on November 26th wrote a letter to the Daily News. Red rice isn't red, it's orange. The world is undergoing rapid change and cultures are expressing dramatic shocks as cherished myths are destroyed by cruel realities. Guam is no exception, and we are far enough into the 21st century to face a very ugly fact concerning the false basis concerning something very similar, very central to the Chamorro belief system, and since it's very much concerned a feasting associated with holiday season, now is a good time, as good a time as any, to acknowledge the truth. There's no such thing as red rice. Santa Claus, the Easter Bunny, the Tooth Fairy, a temporary government program. The achoti-colored rice traditionally eaten on Guam is orange and not red. Calling it red rice for centuries does not make it red. It's orange, and a color wheel is not needed to see this. So please, let's stop looking foolish by calling it red rice, and let's call it by its proper name, orange rice. Now, I use this all the time because it's a very good analogy. Stop saying that he is a female. And don't come along with this transgender thing. Stop saying that he's a female. He's a man. Man up.
Excuse me, it's ma'am. It is ma'am.
So I use this as a really good way to illustrate the difference between the narrative and the actual truth or facts. And I thank Paul for that. So Paul wrote that, and the exact example of what I'm talking about comes winging right back. This rice is not red, it's orange. There's Therese Padua Howe in the Daily News. Readers to Zerzan, quote, "Leave our red rice alone. How dare you tamper with our narratives?" So, you know, you got to admire Paul Zerzan. He tells it like it is. I think if you ever ask Paul Zerzan, Paul, is it ever okay to tell a white lie? His answer would be, depends on what color it is. Yeah, so Paul tells it like it is, and he's not going to sugarcoat things for you. He's going to be very upfront, and he's exactly the kind of guy that we need. And I think my only regret is that we don't have more Paul Zerzans on this island, because I think we wouldn't get into some of the holes that we've gotten ourselves into. Well, Paul's still at it, and this is what he tells me. He says, I work part-time at the Workers' Compensation Office, which is part of the Department of Labor, on the 4th floor of the GCIC building. Early this week, I saw that 3 eye injuries involving foreign objects in the eye. Foreign objects in the eye. What would that be? Tacos or?
Border jumpers.
Yeah. Foreign objects in the eye had occurred at Cortec in a 4-month period. And then he lists the case numbers, the dates of injury, etc. Paul says, I was a machinery technician in the Coast Guard Reserve for 6 years, and I do not remember a single eye injury ever occurring. The Coast Guard is very strict about wearing safety goggles. It occurs to me that Cortec may not have a strict safety goggle policy. The OSHA office is right next door to the workers' comp office. And so, under the adage, if you see something, say something. That's what we're supposed to do, right, Jose?
Yes, sir.
I noted the case numbers and dates of these eye injuries on a piece of paper and went next door. I saw a man and a woman standing near the photocopier, and I asked, are you OSHA? They replied, yes. How can we help you? I briefly told them of my safety concerns involving safety goggles at Cortec, and I gave them the paper. They asked my name, and I told them. Then I hurried back to my office to be available to answer the phone. I have a right, parenthesis, in fact, a duty, to take any safety concerns directly to OSHA. I do not need anyone's permission. So I told no one of my visit to OSHA. OSHA should keep my name confidential. Otherwise, many people would be inhibited from sharing safety concerns with OSHA, and it would prevent OSHA from performing its function. OSHA did not keep my name confidential.
Wow.
When I arrived at work on Friday, March 25th, I was immediately summoned into the office of Joanne Fullerton, the Director of Workers' Comp. Nina, my immediate supervisor, was present but didn't say anything. So it's not what Nina said, Jose.
It's what Nina didn't say.
The office door was closed, and I was berated for half an hour for going to OSHA. Joanne raised her voice, berated him for going to OSHA. Joanne said she thought what I did was right. What you did was right, Paul. But her boss, whoa, the Director of Labor, it would be David Del Isola, had phoned her, and he was very angry at me, and I was never to do this again. Joanne has told me on several occasions that Del Isola is a political appointee from the governor's office, and she has often led me to believe she is afraid of him. Whoa. Where's People magazine when we really need him? At Friday's meeting, Joanne told me that Cortec is very powerful on Guam. She stressed this several times. Let me see if I could get this. Cortec is very powerful on Guam. Cortec is very powerful on Guam. And that since it's an election year, and then Paul says, this is a direct quote, politics is more important than safety. And she basically cautioned me about rocking the boat. She didn't use it. She didn't use those words, but that was the gist of her message. Well, she probably wouldn't use that on him since he'd been in the Coast Guard Reserve for 6 years. So he knows enough not to rock the boat all by himself, right? She figured that would have been superfluous. Now, this story does not add up. It makes no sense to me. Nobody benefits from job injuries. Job safety has nothing to do with politics. Cortec should have a vested interest in preventing eye injuries, and I raised objections about this in this meeting. This provoked Joanne into shouting at me, and after 30 minutes, it became clear to me that the meeting would not end until I agreed to do what I was told and never report safety concerns to OSHA. So instead, I'm reporting them to Tall Tales. I believe this story is about such severe dysfunction in government that it constitutes an evil contempt for the public interest, and this should be reported in the press. I can notarize this statement if you wish. Paul Zerzan, the whistleblower. Well, very interesting, Paul. Paul would make a really great umpire. He would bend over the plate. He would watch the ball coming in, and if the ball were between the letters and the knees over the plate, it'd be a strike.
Now, who ultimately pays for workman compensation payments?
As a practical matter, the insurance carrier that has workers' comp insurance.
But does that also affect the rest of the island in some way? Because to me, this is a huge concern, not just because of the dismissive part about it, but you have OSHA, the company who's supposed to be, or the entity supposed to be protecting work sites. And workman's comp, who's not supposed to be wasting people's time, or people are not supposed to be wasting their time.
Yeah.
You know, they investigate frivolous
exactly
claims, And now they're dismissing it because of why?
Politics. Yeah.
So much for oversight and looking out for us.
Exactly. So the way workman's comp works is that, and I have a hard time with workers' comp. It's always been, I even had a workman's comp claim myself back when I was on a summer vacation working as a roofer and got hurt on a job as a roofer. But the way it works is there's a bureaucracy. There are hearing officers. So if you're hurt on the job, you got to fill out some papers. Ordinarily, your doctor bills are paid. There's a stipend that comes to you. It's less than your regular pay. Sometimes, if the case is complicated, a hearing officer takes evidence and makes a ruling. And it's the employer's liability, but very few employers take that liability upon themselves. They have insurance that covers workman's comp. So workman's comp was kind of a compromise. Before workman's comp came along, it was really hard for a workman to recover against the company. There was a rule called the fellow servant rule. So if I'm a roofer and I'm working with hot tar, and the guy who's running the tar pot makes a mistake and pours hot tar on my foot and burns the heck out of my foot, under the old rules, I attempt to sue the company, but the company says, no, that wasn't us, that was a fellow servant. But if you could ever get past that, then there'd be huge liability. So employers said, better to do this workers' comp. We'll pay. We'll pay every time, but we're not going to have this huge liability. So that's where we are now. But you're absolutely right here, Paul. The policies involved that when the folks at workers' comp see a danger, they should, Delislo himself should have reported it to OSHA if they see that. And the effect that it has on the overall public, other than exposing people on job sites to unsafe conditions, the more unsafe the work sites, the more claims, the higher insurance premiums, the higher the insurance premium, the more merchants are going to have to charge for their stuff. But Paul is exactly right. When he goes to OSHA and then they rat him out to his own agency, the message there is shut up. You see something, keep it to yourself. So this is not a serious thing at all. And looking at it, I suppose, through let me get out my political, remember my old political prism here. When I look through this, I don't see morals, ethics, law, honesty. All I see are the political considerations. And there's no question that Cortec its tentacles are all over the island. Cortec has a grant, or as an application with GITA for a $50 million tax write-off. And I would suspect that Cortec probably makes pretty healthy political contributions. So it may very well be that someone who is in a political position says, hey, you guys, be nice to Cortec. Last thing I need is for Cortec to be angry at me. Get it? So that's kind of a real world analysis of what may or may not be happening. I don't know.
This is a poke in the eye.
It is indeed, yeah.
You know what the other thing is we should watch closely is how long does Paul Zerzan hold down to that job?
Yeah, let's check out his job tenure. And I got a feeling that if he isn't able to hang on to it, we will be the first to know. So Paul Zerzan, systemic racism, and the whistleblower. Good for Paul. Okay, so let's see. It's about time for a short break here, Jose.
Let's go.
Back at it again with the Lenten season menu with Mezcla, giving you a variety of food you can enjoy and pick from, like the fish tacos, spicy buttered shrimp, parrotfish escabeche, lobster pad capral pasta, crab-crusted Chilean sea bass, and more. There you have options. Offered at Hagåtña location for lunch and dinner only at Mezcla. For reservations, call 671-479-2652. What are you waiting for? Let's go celebrate the Lenten season with Mezcla.
Ang inyong bangko na tapat sa serbisyo, kulay na kaibigan at handa para sa inyo. Ang bangko ng kinabukasan, laging maaasahan. And Pacific, where others plug branches, we place roots.
Okay, so here we are back on Tall Tales. Elwin Champaco here. Let me see what Elwin's got to say. Elwin Champaco Quitino, regarding the red or orange debate, how would society react if I said to my Caucasian friend, you're not really white, but more like pink, or to my African American friend by saying, you're not really black, but rather dark brown? How exact must me be? How does the convenience of word usage fit in to my narrative? Well, I don't know how it fits in, Elwin Champaco Quitino, but for me, it was a really nice analogy to use, the difference between the ideology, especially the way the Daily News came back, and the truth or the facts.
And we're talking apples, oranges here. All due respect to Elwin.
Apples and oranges? Nice choice. Man, you ought to be sitting over here with that.
Well,
yeah.
A red apple and a red orange.
Okay.
So we're talking about, I understand where he's coming from as far as trying to get the context, but these are people he's talking about.
Yeah.
And we're talking about food. And
not inanimate objects.
Not inanimate objects, but I guess if you want to talk about brown rice versus red rice, there could be a case, because brown rice isn't always brown.
No. Yeah, well, anyhow, I'm going to keep using it because to me it so clearly illustrates the difference between
narrative,
the truth and the narrative. Mm-hmm. Okay, going on to the next item on the card here. Public Law 36-34. The hospital is really in competition with the Visitors Bureau. They've got they've put up the notice for their meeting on Tuesday, March 29. That's tomorrow. Agenda 1, call to order. 2, approval of minutes. 3, regular, as you were. 3, old business. 4, new business. What old business are they going to discuss? I don't know. A placeholder, no doubt.
It's just water under the staircase.
Yeah. The hospital. True enough. Okay. So moving right along here. By the way, don't forget that right after the big halftime show, we're going to run Hope Cristobal's screen test one more time. Next item on the card. This is not the standard card format. It's not X versus Y or A versus B or red versus orange. This is simply the 19th floor. Just when you thought that the 19th floor was no longer an issue, it comes back. And this is something that ran in the Daily News as one of those Vibe articles by a student who perhaps wasn't around or wasn't aware of the 19th floor when she wrote this article. But this is what it said. Here's a headline: Alice Tyherone works to improve island community. And of course, when I saw that, yeah, she and Becky Respicio were in charge of the 19th floor. showed great hospitality to what was his name? Babauta was
Tony Babauta.
Yeah, to Tony Babauta. Yeah, he liked it so well he spent the night there. A real feather in their caps.
It made him choose another career path.
Absolutely. Alice Tyrone, the governor's deputy chief of staff, started her career in politics at a young age. At 14, she led a successful campaign to become her grade's homeroom president and later became her school's student council president as a senior. I wonder if this was all preordained in the 19th floor. These experiences in her adolescence and later as an adult drove her to pursue her life goal, bringing better opportunities for and to the people of Guam. Tyrone had moved to Guam when she was 7, after her father retired from the military. Her parents, Elias and Maria Tyrone, had always held Guam close to their hearts, even when distance had separated them from the island. And they wanted their daughter to learn from and be exposed to life on Guam, especially on the 19th floor. She ended up attending Notre Dame High School, where she strengthened her Catholic faith. Quote, I loved being a student at Notre Dame. At the time, the school was only for girls, so I was exposed to a lot of female empowerment. Good for her. I felt so comfortable in my skin and appreciated all the Guam community had done for me in the little time that I had lived on the island. She believed that it was important to show her gratitude for the island. She took part in multiple beach cleanups. I wonder if she ever cleaned up the beach down at Johnson Beach in Agate. I'd be interested to know that. She volunteered at hospitals and took part in projects that helped the less fortunate youth of Guam. Quote, I think my want to help others stemmed at Notre Dame. The Notre Dame sisters always encouraged us to think of others and spread love. After graduating with honors, she attended the University of Guam, expecting to become a lawyer. Yeah, well, I think there's probably, being on the 19th floor is probably a whole lot more interesting than being a lawyer. My dad, who has had huge influence on who I am, suggested that I become a lawyer to help those who needed help. What kind of lawyer is that? He would always tell me that I am who I am because of my family and my island. Later, though, I realized my passion for politics. I loved researching and analyzing methods to make communities better. She eventually graduated with a degree in political science, then went on to pursue her master's in organization arts from the University of Phoenix. Afterward, she worked for former Senator Judy Wonpat and was one of the people that helped Jody put together the Wonpat 10. No, I don't know if she... I'm not, even I'm not going to hang that around her neck. The disgrace of the Wonpat 10. She was soon asked to do legislative work in Washington by former Representative Robert Underwood for 4 years. I'm beginning to see a pattern here. I wonder if she subscribes to critical race theory. She met Lou Leon Guerrero, who was a senator at that time, and became her political analyst and research writer. It's a 4-page article, but I didn't bring the rest of it. I just wanted to make the point that, you know, Becky and Alice really made a name for themselves on the 19th floor.
There's some splaining to do.
Yeah, they not only made a name for themselves, they made some big money on the 19th floor. Remember that? 2 directors doing the same kind of work that $10 an hour employees could have easily done.
And overtime and bonus pay also, I understand?
Something like that, yeah. Yeah, because food was brought up to the 19th. So the 19th floor, as the history of this era is written, there will be several chapters on the 19th floor. Not only about what happened on the 19th floor, but
what did not happen on the 19th floor.
Yeah. All right, so much for Alice Tyrone. I next move on to Brown and Tello versus irresponsibility. I wonder if that's Alice Tyrone on the phone. I think it's probably another Joe. You want to talk about the 19th floor, another Joe?
Is the conspiracy theory is also that your program is so prestigious, your talk show that even bad news has good results for some people because they get nominated to the Nobel Peace Prize.
I think you got it, Jose. I mean, another Joe. I think you got it. You nailed it this time for sure. Yeah.
Which I think you might bring up later.
Yeah. So next year, Alice Tyrone, Nobel Peace Prize. Yeah, she was mentioned on Tall Tales.
And also, Hope Cristobal.
Today's the day, Jose.
As opposed. Okay. I'll just keep listening. Thanks.
All right. Good talking to you, another Joe.
He must have just got the news.
Yeah. Okay, next item here is Brown and Tello versus irresponsibility. And this is John O'Connor's story in the Post. Senators vote on bill increasing Gura board stipend 400%. Lawmakers are set to decide whether to pass a bill to increase compensation for Guam Housing and Urban Renewal Authority commissioners later this session. Senators discussed the bill Friday afternoon before pushing it into a third reading, which is essentially a step before final voting. Opponents are raising an issue of timing and setting a precedent for other boards. Bill 211-36 from Senator Joe San Augustine would raise the meeting stipend for Gura commissioners up to $250 from $50. The maximum compensation per month would also be raised to $500 from $100.
Wait, what?
All right, let's break for the big halftime show and we'll come back to Gura.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Russia's plan for Ukraine. I'm Laura Cantor, Fox News. Ukrainian officials claiming that Russia wants Ukraine to be like North and South Korea, split into two. Russian authorities censoring Ukrainian President Zelensky's interview with Russian media outlets. President Zelensky speaking with the outlets about laying out a roadmap for peace in Ukraine. Some areas in Ukraine have had their supply chains cut off, leaving residents desperate for essentials, including food and medication.
The mayor says that both of the sites, the oil depot and a factory used by the military, were both struck twice. The shock of the explosions blowing out the windows of nearby buildings. In Lviv, much of life has seemed to return to normalcy. We saw people out walking their dogs, going for runs. Now also in Kyiv, high school students and university students will start school again on Monday. They will learn virtually, but again, finding any sense of normalcy.
Fox's Alex Hogan in Lviv, Ukraine. Ukrainian negotiator announcing Sunday that Russia and Ukraine will do peace talks Monday in Istanbul, Turkey. The 94th Academy Awards taking place Sunday from the Dolby Theater in Los Angeles. Michelle Polino has the report on some of the night's big winners.
Coda was the night's big winner with 3, nabbing Best Picture, Adapted Screenplay, as well as Supporting Actor for Troy Kotsur.
To my mom, my dad, and my brother Mark, they're not here today, but look at me now. I did it.
Sound courtesy of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences and ABC. Dune picked up 6 awards, including Best Cinematography. Will Smith took home the Best Actor award for King Richard.
Jessica Chastain winning Best Actress, Jane Campion winning Best Director for The Power of the Dog, and one of the most shocking moments in Oscar history occurring when Will Smith slapped comedian Chris Rock on stage after he made a joke about Smith's wife, Jada Pinkett Smith. America is listening to Fox News.
When the pandemic first started and we had no idea that it was going to affect our business till March of 2020. Orders from public health, roadblocks, restriction. It was a very hard time for me. What really has saved my business is the SBA and the PPP program. I felt keeping the employees was so important because I had faith that my government would help me later, the federal government. We applied and we received 2 PPP loans equaling up to $425,000. That money saved me because it's been 2 years. I think 80 or 90% of the restaurants have closed. The only reason I'm here because of my devoted clientele and the federal government.
Thank you for helping save jobs with federal funds. Thank you to the federal government for all the federal ARP money.
Thank you for the federal funds.
This ad was paid for with official funds from the office of Congressman Michael F.Q. San Nicolas.
A parking garage under construction collapsing Saturday evening in Boston. Police identifying 51-year-old Peter Monsini as the construction worker who was killed in the collapse.
Part of the garage, which was being demolished, came down after a concrete slab on the 9th floor collapsed. Boston Fire Commissioner Jack Dempsey says a construction worker operating a crane fell over the side of the garage when the structure collapsed. That worker was found under a pile of rubble and was pronounced dead at the scene. There's no word on the condition of the second person who was hospitalized. Chris DeMeo, Fox News.
New York City Mayor Eric Adams saying he is making good on his campaign promise to help remedy his city's homeless crisis.
The mayor telling the New York Times on Friday that city officials are planning to remove makeshift shelters set up by homeless people on city streets. That promise and a pledge to get tough on crime were the cornerstones of Adams' campaign last year. The mayor not going into detail about what the plan entails, but it comes after he also announced a push to remove homeless people from the city's subway system in response to assaults and other aggressive behavior. Eric Adams is a retired New York City transit police officer. Paul Stevens, Fox News.
A new film taking over the top spot at the weekend box office. Fox's Mary Corsetti has the report.
Sandra Bullock and Channing Tatum led the action-adventure comedy throwback The Lost City to a $31 million debut in U.S. and Canadian theaters over the weekend, dethroning The Batman from the #1 spot. The superhero film fell to second place in its 4th week of release and added $20.5 million to its domestic total of $332 million, while the Indian epic Rise, Roar, Revolt opened with $9.5 million, one of the largest releases ever for a movie from India. The action-adventure flick Uncharted is still staying strong, landing at number 4, making $5 million at the box office. Rounding it out at number 5 is the Japanese fantasy film Jujutsu Kaisen with $4.6 million.
The Batman raking up $673 million worldwide. I'm Laura Cantor, and this is Fox
News. Always here to help you. This island is our home. Through the years, we've been a friend to the neighbors we have. Services to choose. Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Back at it again with the Lenten season menu with Mezcla, giving you a variety of food you can enjoy and pick from, like the fish tacos, spicy buttered shrimp, parrotfish escabeche, lobster pad capral pasta, crab-crusted Chilean sea bass, and more. There you have options, options, options. Offered at Hagatna location for lunch and dinner only at Mezcla. For reservations, call 671-479-2652. What are you waiting for? Let's go celebrate the Lenten season with Mezcla.
Half a day. This is Jade Uggan from Security Title, and in celebration of Tomorrow Month, here is a tip on dealing with your land. You might be thinking of giving part of your property to your child or another family member. Once you have subdivided the property and recorded the map, you will also need to record the deed transferring the title. Just drawing the map is not enough to make sure they actually own the land. Protehi y Tanonmu. When it comes to your family land, call the professionals at Security Title. We are here to help.
Well, here we are in that time of the day, that time of the week that kind of sets the tone for some of our discussions. We spent a lot of time talking about critical race theory. Robert Underwood, who's been teaching critical race theory since 1972, according to his own admission. The separatists, Robert is one of the leaders. Hope Cristobal is one of the leaders. Laura Sauter, Michael Bavacqua, etc. And I'd like to think that in some respects, Hope Cristobal is the face and voice of the separatist movement. Separatist meaning that they want Guam to separate from the United States and be a sovereign, independent country free of all of the mistreatment that Guam receives from the United States. That's what Hope will tell you. And she will tell you a little bit about herself, that she's responsible for the Chamorro Independence Commission and a few other things. And it's pretty enlightening. I've gotten this, I guess it's kind of a malady called limerick-itis, that I'm tempted to write limericks about things that come up on the show. So here it is for today. There is hope. For the U.S., she'll always say nope. With other views, she can't cope. For independence, she hopes. With Paul Zerzan, she copes. Just listen up, and here's hope.
You're nothing but a white colonizer. That's who you are. Colonization. The same thing as slow murder. You're a murderer. That's who you are. We need to just do different. We need to do better. Get off my island.
Sir, you need to go. You can't be policing people here and telling people how to protest or what to protest for. You need to go. You need to go. I'm against this. That's cool, but you cannot be policing people and telling them how to protest and what to advocate for. She has a right to go.
I'm an indigenous Chamorro. I have more rights here than you are. You came here because of the structures of colonialism, asshole. Tayo mamalaw, how sige Jose Gitano. Titaw tano how. Waho bini taw tano. Waho bini magahoga. Waho son na kay gitu bini. Hago that's on the short movie. What's on you? I'm sorry. You need to leave.
You need to go.
Please.
You need to get out of here.
Please pause this.
Get out of here.
Please, this is not your place.
When I get a chance, go.
Please. Thank you. Thank you, pause this. Please leave. Oh, you think
What happened to him?
Oh, he confronted me.
What did he
He's
say?
telling me I shouldn't be here. I support Black Lives Matter. It's part of the colonialistic systemic racism. And I came here to support these people. He's a white man that has come here. And he continues the legacy of colonialism. He continues to fight people, individuals, my goodness. I'm a former senator. I authored the Commission on Decolonization. Karoho. Ay, mamalo.
We are proud of you, Auntie.
Si Diyos mangasi.
He's a...
Well, there you go. Yeah, this is the face and voice of the Chamorro separatism movement on Guam. and there are those who apparently think that what she has done is quite appropriate. Now, I would say I don't care what your cause is, how deeply you're involved in it. This is just absolutely inappropriate behavior for anybody. You'll notice, however, that some of the young folks, you need to leave, you need to leave.
That was kind of scary.
It is, and I keep ringing this bell over and over again that these things that we think are not or could never happen here can indeed happen here, even with something like this, something as ridiculous as this, developing some support. Well, here's another good example that I talked about last week. This is from the Post. Uniting Peoples, Generations for Peace and Justice. Hope Cristobal is Nobel Peace Prize nominee. That's like, that's like putting Lucky Luciano in charge of the Crime Commission. It just makes no sense at all. But guess who nominated Hope Cristobal for her Nobel Prize? Lisa Natividad, PhD, professor of social work and co-founder of the Guam Coalition for Peace and Justice, said she is on the council and was contacted by a board member about their nomination ideas for this year. They said it's a time for Guam, and Guam needs a nomination for the Nobel Peace Prize. Now, whenever we have these opportunities, whenever we send someone as a representative of the island somewhere, we got to be kind of careful. Because let's say that we sent Hope Cristobal to confer with whoever it is that does the evaluating here. Aren't they going to say, people usually send their best? If that's their best, God, I'd hate to see the worst. I'd hate to see the marginal ones. But Lisa tells us the reason we decided she would be the nominee is because of her outstanding work. Not just in the past month, but her whole life has been a testament to social justice work. The core and center of that is peace as it connects to the Chamorro people. Well, if that's peace, as far as that outfit is concerned, I'll take war any day of the week. Yeah, okay, so that's the Hope Cristobal screen test for another week. I'll run it again next Monday. If you want to see it again, or if you have friends who haven't seen it, give them a heads up. We'll run it on Mondays, on Red Shirt Monday, right after the big halftime show. Let's see, I've got somebody waiting to get in from the green room here. It's our Carl. And he wants to comment on hope in the mostly peaceful crowd. The most boy, I'll tell you what, Carl, it's a good thing you weren't down there. That park would have emptied out in a half a minute,
Oh, no comment. Yeah, I think they would have still been, I think, angry at the white people. At least half of me, because my father was Caucasian, so they would have been angry.
Well,
at half
you know, we've
You're
all
a half murderer.
we've all got things to live down. You know, like my father married a woman.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm glad you keep replaying that because, you know, repetition is the mother of learning, and people really need to hear that, and they need to hear it repeatedly because that is a peek behind the curtain of what this movement is really about. It's extreme leftist, Marxist, and
angry people.
Yeah, exactly. But my focus for this phone call is the young people that are in the background of that spiel, you know, saying you need to go, and telling Paul Zerzan, who's been here for decades, you need to leave the island. So basically they're telling my late father, who was Caucasian, that he shouldn't have been here because he was a colonizer. And my late Filipino wife, that she had no right to be here because she was a settler. And these young people are being indoctrinated in our schools at taxpayer expense. And they are being, our children and our grandchildren, starting in elementary school all the way to college with the studies programs in the States and on Guam, they're being indoctrinated to hate America. And that is my concern. You know, this is very much the tactics of Saul Alinsky, the author of Rules for Radicals, the classic Bible for radicals. Alinsky did not. He was very against the '60s in-your-face approach. What Alinsky was for adopting the words and the clothing and the manners of your target audience and making them feel comfortable and relaxed. And he was for infiltration. He was very much I don't know if I'm pretty sure he might have read Gramsci. I don't know, but he pretty much the same tactics of infiltration and indoctrination. And that's my concern, is that the children, our young people, are being indoctrinated, and they're being enlisted and recruited in a culture war and a ongoing cultural revolution across America. And we saw a glimpse of what happens as that movement starts to gain speed and approaches critical mass after the George Floyd event with all the riots and everything. That was no accident. That was a crop, of fruit that was the result of a few decades of planting of Marxist ideas in the institutions, especially the universities and now our schools. So that's my concern, is these young people do not realize that they are being recruited and they are being manipulated to for political power. That is, Alinsky was completely open. He was facing a class one day, and he asked them, "Why do you want to do what you're doing? You know, this how do you say? Trying to find the words.
Rabble rousing.
Yeah, rabble rousing, and you know, indoctrination and all this other stuff, you know, and his tactics. Why do you want to do that? What's the end game? And, you know, and they were saying the same thing. Well, we want to help humanity, and we want to, you know, do, you know, all these good things, bring, you know, improve mankind and all this. And he stopped them, and he said, he told them no. He screamed at them. He said, you only have one purpose, and that is power, political power. And that is the end game here. And the young people are just leverage and tools to be used for a group of people to reach political power. They are being manipulated. They're being used. And that is the sole purpose of it. It's not to improve mankind. You know, we can watch what happened in what's happening in Venezuela and Cuba and
New York, Los Angeles, San Francisco,
yeah, exactly.
Portland.
The people, you know, once these people get into power, and you know, the over 24 failing inner cities across America, they've been run by the left for decades, for 50 to 100 years. And the blacks and Hispanics in these places suffer, you know, with all these results of these bad policies. But they, you know, the people in power, the administrators, don't care. As long as they have power, that's all that matters. As long as you keep voting us in, that's all that matters. So anyway, I just wanted to add my 2 bits about that. My concern is you can always deal with, you know, a few people who are rabble-rousers, but the problem is when they start recruiting people, young people and other people into their army, and that starts gaining momentum. That is very, very concerning. So people need to wake up that is exactly what's happening in the States, and that's what's happening here. Anyway, that's my 2 bits for the day, Bob. Thank you for allowing me to rant a little bit. I appreciate it.
We look forward to it. Our Carl, thanks for calling.
All right.
The most dangerous man in the room. Okay, it's a little early to head for Wrigley Field. Let me work on Tello and Brown and Tello versus irresponsibility. So Joe San Augustine has introduced a bill to raise the stipend for board members at GURA from $50 to $250, as much as $500 a month. And here's the rationale. I just don't. It's hard even for me to find words on this one. GURA is completely federally funded, and thus the compensation of board of commissioners. Now, what's a board of commissioners? Would not have any impact on the government of Guam, San Augustine said Friday, adding that other jurisdictions such as Massachusetts and Indiana have increased compensation for their commissioners up to and even higher than what is proposed in Bill 211 as they fill a critical position. Well, if it's good enough for Massachusetts and Indiana, what are we waiting for? Did I ever tell you about Indiana, Jose?
I don't think I've heard about Indiana.
Yeah, well, I've been to some really exotic places in my life. Yeah, I've been to Indonesia. I've been to India. And you know what? I've even been to Indiana. Yeah. So
you world traveler.
Exactly. Yeah, I've been to even Indianapolis, Indiana. That's about as high as you can get.
Now you're bragging.
Yeah, it ain't bragging if you've really done it. That's Muhammad Ali, right? The fiscal note on the bill acknowledged that the increase in compensation would be completely absorbed by GURA's federal funding. Senator Tello Taitigui, however, raised concerns about the bill, not because her name was on it this time. It's ironic to see something like this come before us. You're increasing stipends to almost 400%. I can see doing something gradual as time progresses to increase a little bit more due to gas and issues that we're having, she said, adding that she did not believe this issue was about money for those serving on the board, and it shouldn't be about money. Tadegui also said allowing the increase regardless of the funding source being federal dollars would set a precedent for all other boards. So we're saying right now they're not as important as the GURA board, Tadegui said. We have not made this about contributing to the community. We've made this about money, and shame on us for doing that. Tello Tadegui gets it right. Senator Brown also opposed the bill, primarily because it does send the wrong message at this time. We have such incredible uncertainty about the economic future of Guam, the economic uncertainty of the world. What are we doing to prepare a plan for any of that? No, we're not doing any of those things because we're too busy spending. St. Augustine, who began his closing statements with an audible sigh. Okay, it's time for me to make my closing argument here. Something right up there with passing when it's your turn to vote. Did St. Augustine speak on the bill? No, he strode to the microphone and issued an audible sigh. Good call, Joe. Yeah. Stated the legislation was to ensure compensation for the Gura Board was in line with the millions of dollars they must protect and distribute in programs and services. St. Augustine repeated that Gura is completely federally funded and increasing the board's compensation would not affect local coffers. It's so tempting to respond to my colleagues what they said, but we'll leave that for later. I'm not done sighing yet, St. Augustine said. Despite some opposition to the bill, there was no objection to place Bill 211 into the third reading. Okay, let's head for Wrigley Field. Now come back and do a little recap on this one.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts. Brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
We're already Pika's best radio station, but we're always looking for ways to be even better. Announcing The Point on Alexa. In addition to our FM and HD radio feeds, our incredible app, informative website, Facebook Live, and YouTube Live, you can now tell Alexa to stream The Point. And your smart speaker will start playing whatever we're saying. News and views 24/7 with your 4-word command. Alexa, stream The Point.
Here we go. Tall Tales, Wrigley Field, the 7th inning stretch. Everybody out there in the center field bleachers is stretching because we only got 2 more innings to go on this Monday here on Tall Tales. And I just read into the record Joe St. Augustine's latest bit of genius to increase the stipend for members of the Gura. He calls it Board of Commissioners. There's no such thing as a Board of Commissioners, Joe. If you are if you are a commissioner at Gura, the Board of Commissioners is called a commission. That's why the members are commissioners, not board members. So Joe says, well, it's $250, but it's federal money, so it won't affect us at all. Well, let's just stop and analyze it a little bit. Let's analyze it in terms of the commissioners, governors' future appointments to the commission, the effects on other boards and commissions, the effect on the population in general, and the effect on just a general sense of thriftiness and making it on our own. The fact that something is, quote, free doesn't necessarily mean it's something we ought to jump at. Stuff like this, you know, it's the kind of thing that has the ability to destroy incentive. But let me go through my analysis here. First of all, what effect will it have on commissioners? Will commissioners be more diligent now that they're getting $250 instead of $50? Will they prepare for 20 minutes instead of 10 minutes for each board meeting? Will they arrive 5 minutes early instead of 10 minutes late? Will it have any effect on behavior whatsoever? My analysis is no, it won't. The only effect it will have on behavior is that people are going to be pretty happy about having more money in their pocket. Okay, so what effect does it have on other boards? Well, I think Tello hit it. You know, it's going to be sort of a downgrade for the other boards. Yeah, we're not as good as GURA because we only get $50 a meeting. Federal money doesn't make any difference. I'm going to get my party to introduce a bill in the legislature to raise the stipend for all board meetings, because if commissioners on one commission get $250 and other board members and commissioners only get $50, you know what the final result of that is, Jose?
What would that be?
It's not fair. It's just not fair. And if it's not fair, we got to fix it. So the only way to fix it is to pay every commissioner and every board member $250. And then what about the dynamics between the governor and the appointee? Let's just imagine it's the election season. And let's say that there's a political operative out there in the community, maybe not even a member of the government, but someone who is known far and wide is able to deliver a lot of votes come election time. And this advocate, let's call him an advocate, sometimes goes Democrat, sometimes goes Republican, just depends. So a governor looking for re-election approaches the advocate and says, are you going to be with me this time? You and your supporters, are you going to back me up? And the advocate says, Governor, are you going to ask for courtesy resignations from the GURA Commission? All of the commissioners, that's kind of traditional that they all resign and you appoint new ones. If I'm elected, yeah, I'm going to do that. I'm going to appoint, I may appoint the same ones. Governor, there are 7 commissioners. You could fill 7 vacancies. Let me ask you this again. You want me to support you, right? Let me ask you this, Governor. Are you going to ask are you going to replace the current commissioners? Well, yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah. So what are we going to get on the commission? People that really understand housing, federal programs, folks that are really interested in doing real community service, which means you don't get paid for it. People that have some sort of dedication and really would want to spend the time and the energy to do a good job there? Or are we going to get folks at $250 a head? What do you think out there in our international radio listening audience? I'm betting on the $250 a head.
You know, there's a new addition to next week's job fair. Board member.
GURA board.
Board member.
GURA commissioner. Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, well, what, you're on welfare and food stamps? Couldn't you get appointed to the GURA commission? All right, let's see what's next on the agenda here. The post versus accuracy. Governor meets with Eagles Field ancestral landowners. Now, if you read that headline and you didn't know how sloppy our newspapers are, you'd think, well, let's see, this is about people that own land somewhere, right? I wonder where the land is. Do they own Eagles? Governor meets with Eagles Field ancestral landowners. Do they own Eagles Field?
Nope.
More than 30 ancestral landowners of Eagles Field.
That's a crowded land.
More than 30 ancestral landowners of Eagles Field. Now, I thought that the Air Force owned Eagles Field and was allowing the government of Guam to use it. Just goes to show you, even I can be wrong. More than 30 ancestral landowners of Eagles Field and their representatives met Tuesday night with the governor and the lieutenant governor. How can you get it so wrong? And I'm going to answer my own question. The way that you get it that wrong is you have an agenda. And your agenda is dictating how you write this column, not the actual facts of what's going on. Folks who were pre-condemnation owners of the land upon which Eagles Field sits don't own nothing. Unless it's somewhere else. They don't own that land. They are not landowners. As a matter of law, they aren't even claimants. They don't even have a claim to the land. Eagles Field is one of 17 sites identified by the governor's healthcare task force to become the potential home of a new medical complex that could cost nearly $1 billion. However, some residents with ancestral claims to the land. What's an ancestral claim? As long as the Air Force owns that property. I've explained this before. Unless the Air Force declares it excess, you can bet on the Air Force owning that until hell freezes over. However, some residents with ancestral claims to the land have called on officials to facilitate its return to original landowners. Now, the original landowners would be people who got patents in the name of the king or queen of Spain. Those would be the original landowners. And title passed to successive owners after that until finally the Air Force, the U.S. Department of Defense took it through eminent domain. Well, the Ancestral Lands Commission is charged with facilitating the return of excess federal land to original landowners or their heirs. Eagles Field is not among these excess lands. Okay, finally here, I'm on the second page, finally got something right. But it was listed as a, quote, potential transfer to the local government in past communications with former Secretary of the Navy Kenneth Braithwaite. While often referred to as Eagles Field, the land Braithwaite identified encompassed 102 acres within the Anderson-Barragata Annex, which extends well beyond the actual field. There are 48 acres on the Eagles Field side. Across from there are remaining 54 acres. Crystal Paco San Augustine, the governor's spokeswoman, said some Eagles Field landowners expressed interest in some Eagles Field landowners.
The Air Force?
Right. Yeah, they expressed interest in land return during Tuesday's meeting. This is kind of like asking the kids if they want to extend school into the summer, right? That poll that they took. Others wanted just compensation if the land couldn't be returned or were interested in land exchange. So, you know, what we're talking about here is a windfall. A windfall, and I mentioned this before, I am not aware of any place in the United States where the national government ever took land in fee simple and the land was ever returned to the pre-condemnation owners. Not any time that I'm ever aware of. Now, I haven't gone out and beat the bushes looking for it, but I'm certainly not aware of it. So we got something here that's never happened before anywhere else. It's what you would call a windfall. A windfall. You're sitting there, you haven't done anything to earn the money, and it drops in your lap. That's the definition of a windfall. So, according to Crystal Paco San Augustine, some wanted the land back, returned. Others wanted just compensation or were interested in a land exchange. Now, I got an autobiographical story here. When I first started practicing, one of one of the most interesting lawyers probably to ever hang out a shingle on Guam was still practicing, Ed Crane. Ed Crane was admitted to the bar in 1948. He was a real pioneer on the island. And he was still around when I started practicing. And of course, he was a seasoned old-timer veteran who really knew the ropes. I was a youngster, ambitious, hardworking, but not seasoned. And I remember attempting, I had a case where Ed was on the other side, and I thought that perhaps the case was ripe for settlement. And Ed and I were on the phone, and I said, Ed, my client would like, I don't know how much, my client would like $20,000 to settle. Ed Crane very quickly said, people in hell want ice water too, but that ain't no sign they're going to get it. Ed Crane's precept is clearly applicable here. You don't have a legal claim to the property. If you've paid you've 18 pre-condemnation owners, heirs of 18 pre-condemnation owners, you've read in the paper that only excess land goes to the land trust, to the Ancestral Lands Commission, etc., that the governor wants to build a hospital there. They're talking about a lease, etc., and you're already, I don't think they've quite spent the money yet, but the Christmas lists have all been prepared. And this is why I really blame the Daily Post and the Daily News. This talk about ancestor, it's like, we know you really own the land, and because they won't do things that you want, they're wrong and you're right. Stick with it, guys. We're with you 100%. That's not the job of the newspaper. These news stories should be written in neutral language and forget about ancestral landowners. The governor tasked the Guam Ancestral Land Commission, Department of Land Management, the Economic, and GITA to continue meeting with ancestral landowners and to incorporate their feedback in future planning for a new medical campus. Yeah, a lot of them are doctors. The governor's office stated, Speaker Therese Tetlahi, who leads the Legislative Committee on Land, responded to the governor's release with concerns about her plans for Eagles Field and its original landowners. Teresa's got plans. There was a clear indication in the January 15, 2021 letter to the governor from the Secretary of the Navy that the properties were eligible for return to the territory as excess. I am concerned that Guam is no longer advocating for return of those lands as excess, and the governor may instead be considering leasing the ancestral properties back from the military. She said that. She's come right out and said it. And I went through the analysis on this. It's in no one's interest to give that land to the 18 pre-condemnation owners' heirs. It's certainly not in the governor's interest. It's going to make the hospital cost a whole lot more money. It's not in the Air Force interest. It's not in the general population of Guam's interest. So we're going to advance the interest of the 18 regardless of whether or not it makes good financial sense for anybody else. Therese goes on to say it's unclear whether the governor is contemplating compensating these landowners. Which landowners? You see,
ancestral.
you see how this works?
Absolutely.
They are already landowners, and there is as much a stranger to the title to that real property. Well, actually, no. When it comes to the 18 ancestral landowners, that's us. Teti and Pop, who weren't notified about this. But putting that aside, there is much strange, and quote, ancestral landowners are as much strangers to the title as you are, Jose. You have no relationship to that title, and they have none either. They have, at the very best, a mere expectancy or a wish. The families on this list await division and distribution of what may turn out to be nominal amounts from the Ancestral Lands Commission funds in light of the numerous landowners still owed compensation. Landowners have reached, oh man, this is serious, reached out to me to express their desires to have their lands returned. I would have never thought that in a million years. They want to have the land given to them. It just blows up. Who would have ever thought that, Jose? And of course, we've seen how it happened. The Martinez Torres up there in the northern wastewater treatment plant area. The land is so important to the people. They only flipped it for $23 million, but it meant so much to them. And that's what's happened. The Tejan, you know. So we gave the land back to the original landowners at Tejan and then bought it back from them or leased it back for them. All in the name of the ancestral landowners.
Wow.
Meanwhile, the governor's healthcare task force continues to analyze other sites to potentially house the new medical complex. Our goal is to develop a medical campus that meets our community's urgent needs. This facility is being designed for all and will continue to work together and bring everyone along toward a healthy and prosperous future for Guam. This includes ensuring our ancestral landowners are fully apprised of all their options and the actions taken. Now, what this sounds like to me, all their options, well, let's see. You can bang your head against the wall. You could take an aspirin. You go out and get drunk. These are your options because I'm going to lease that land from the Air Force. And then, of course, the governor, if my analysis is correct, this is kind of cruel. She's nursing them along. She's
the Pied Piper.
We'll keep talking about this at least until after the election.
And then with the immortal quote, "I never said you were ancestral landowners."
I never said I was going to give the land back to you or give you any money. I never said that. I did meet with you, though, several times because it was the least I could do. All right, moving right along here. We've got GWA versus poor people. Yeah, let me head for Churchill Downs here.
When the pandemic first started and we had no idea that it was going to affect our business till March of 2020. Orders from public health, roadblocks, restriction. It was a very hard time for me. What really has saved my business is the SBA and the PPP program. I felt keeping the employees was so important because I had faith that my government would help me later, the federal government. We applied and we received 2 PPP loans equaling up to $425,000. That money saved me because it's been 2 years. I think 80 or 90% of the restaurants have closed. The only reason I'm here because of my devoted clientele and the federal government.
Thank you for helping save jobs with federal funds. Thank you to the federal government for all the federal ARP money.
Thank you for the federal funds.
This ad was paid for with official funds from the office of Congressman Michael F.Q. San Nicolas.
What the? We're on. Let me find this, Bob.
Well, sorry about that one, and the horses got sick. I had to be taken back to the paddock, so we couldn't have the call to the post at the regular time.
In my defense, I'm not a bugler.
Okay, so here we go. Guam Waterworks versus poor people. Now, I had another item on the card that I haven't gotten to yet. It's called CCU versus PUC, so I'm going to try to wrap them both up in the next 10 minutes here. CCU versus PUC is a story that ran in the Daily News. The headline is this: CCU won't petition to increase power bills, leaves decision to PUC.
What's going to happen in November?
Yeah. Do the members of the PUC, are the members of the PUC gutless, Jose?
I don't know.
How should I know?
How should I know? I'm not Putin the Butcher.
Yeah, they're gutless because what they're talking about is the levelized, what is it called? The levelized adjustment, the fuel adjustment factor, which has to change as the price of oil goes up and down. As you know, the price of oil is way up. You can tell that when you go to the gas station. And we're already something like $28 million in the hole. So the only way to be able to continue to buy fuel is to raise the rates to the point where we can afford to buy the fuel and not to continue going into the hole farther and farther. So it's very clear that that's where we are now. We got to raise the rates. The CCU, the way it ordinarily works, the director of the Power Authority petitions the CCU, says, I want to raise rates. To this point, does a lot of skillful calculations, et cetera. The Consolidated Commission on Utilities then votes yes or no. And if it's yes, then they petition the Public Utilities Commission for a change in rates. The Public Utilities Commission starts what's called a docket, entertains the matter, perhaps refers it to a consultant, and either approves or disapproves or even modifies sometimes. So it's so much easier and so much less painful on the CCU when they come to this point where a really hard decision has to be made, and to say, well, we'll just let the PUC determine this. None of them are running for re-election. They're all appointed. And that way, when power bills go up and people try to when we're out in public and people give us the Aten Baba, all we got to do is say, hey, can't blame me. It's not my fault. PUC raised the rates. They're the ones that did it. Not very good call, CCU. Not what the kind of expectations that I've developed for you over the years. Now, here's a really good one. Decision on water rates expected shortly, but the articles in the Daily News starts like this. The Public Utilities Commission will decide whether Guam residents should pay as much as 10% more for water service, including a 5% 5% rate hike, or propose to give customers less water at the lower lifeline rate. Now, this is what the lifeline rate means. There is a beginning rate, I think it's for 5,000 gallons of water, and the rate for the first 5,000 gallons is less than the 501st gallon, 5,101st gallon. And this is supposed to be, guess what? Help low-income people, get by, So, water is a human right, and now that whole rap, so we've got to have this lifeline rate. So it's been in places. My recollection is that Senator Tony Palomo is the one who put it in place back in maybe the 13th or 14th Guam legislatures, and it's been there since. And Jack will call and tell us from time to time that he's not satisfied that the lifeline rate has never been reviewed. And I guess he was studying up on that when he's waiting in the drive-through line for his supper. So the Public Utilities Commission will decide whether residents should pay more or give customers less water at a lower lifeline rate. The waterworks, as part of a rate proposal being considered by the dreaded PUC, plans to give residential customers less lifeline-priced water each month, 3,000 gallons instead of 5,000 gallons. It's part of a strategy to get more money from water customers without raising rates. This is one of the initiatives that we're trying to get more money without raising rates. The other one is trying to get blood out of a stone.
Is that a quote? Okay.
We have determined that if we...
It's hard to tell these days.
if we squeeze a stone... yeah, I mean, it's like with some of the Ketanji stuff, you know, it's hard to know if it's Hard News or Babylon Bee. Yeah. So it's part of their strategy to get more money from water customers without increasing rates. Well, what about the rate for the 2,000 gallons between 3,000 and 5,000? Doesn't that rate go up? Oh, no, that's different. GWA sells the first 5,000 gallons used by customers each month at a rate of $3.01 per 1,000 gallons. Any additional water used per month costs $11.83 per month. So that lifeline rate, and you get it, I get it. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but that's the way it is. Based on the current rates under GWA's proposal, the first 5 gallons of water used by residential customers would increase in price from $15 per month to $32.69 per month. Whoa, that's a pretty stiff raise. The result would be more revenue for the waterworks to pay for a proposed $5.2 million assistance program for low-income customers. It just gets crazier. So you're going low-income customers. That's the $5 million they want to spend because the poor old lady had a $36,000 water bill.
When they were first talking about this, I think Mark Bordelli, right? Didn't he say we're going to do it without raising rates?
I don't remember that, but
No.
I remember $5 million. It's going to cost $5 million.
Always going to cost.
Yeah, but you know we'll fix people's leaks and we'll do all of these wonderful things. And psst, remember the lady with a $36,000 water bill? Yeah. So we're going to raise the rates from $15 a month to almost $33 a month to raise money for the proposed assistance program for low-income customers. Now, is that income redistribution or what? The People's Republic of Waterworks. The Customers Assistance Program would help low-income customers pay their water bills and detect and fix costly leaks in their plumbing on private property. Bordallo last week told lawmakers the current $5 million, 5,000 gallon cap for the lifeline rate was arbitrarily picked. Yeah, here we are at the finish line. I got to get on. This is just lunacy. I got to get on this tomorrow for sure. Okay, it's the end of another perfect day here on Tall Tales, so we wind up by saying, let's go, Brandon.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3. 104.3 HD3.
Zelensky needs more help. Fox News, I'm Laura Cantor. Ukrainian President Zelensky pleading for the United Nations to provide more help in defending themselves against Russian forces. In an address Sunday, he described Western allies as being scared. He also asked for more fighter jets and tanks. Ukrainian officials are claiming Russia wants to split Ukraine into two parts, like North Korea and South Korea. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky also speaking in a message at a rally in Washington, D.C. Sunday.
Make yourselves visible and heard. Say that people matter, freedom matters, peace matters, Ukraine matters.
The rally was to show support for Ukraine against the Russian invasion.
A crowd of supporters gathered at the Lincoln Memorial to hear continued encouragement for the people of Ukraine more than 1 month into Russia's invasion. Ukraine's ambassador to the U.S., Oksana Markarova, appealed to Americans, saying her nation's citizens are much like them.
We are fighting the war for freedom. Freedom is the cornerstone upon which America is based, but also Ukraine is built.
More talks between Russia and Ukraine to end the conflict are scheduled in Turkey this week.
Fox's Gernal Scott in New York. Shanghai, China beginning another COVID-19 lockdown to conduct mass testing and control the rising outbreak. North Korea stating Monday that its leader, Kim Jong-un, vowing to come up with more powerful attack weapons. Will Smith winning Best Actor for his portrayal of the Williams sisters' father in King Richard at the Oscars Sunday night. Earlier in the show, Smith walked onto the stage and slapped comedian Chris Rock in the face after making a bald joke about Smith's wife, Jada Pinkett Smith. The awards show aired live from Los Angeles on ABC. America is listening to Fox News.
Jason in the House, the Jason Chaffetz podcast. There is always someone doing something stupid somewhere. Dive deeper than the headlines and the party lines as I take on American life, politics, and entertainment. Join me, Jason Chaffetz, every Wednesday as I shed light on the news and make some predictions along the way. You never know who will drop in. Subscribe now on foxnewspodcast.com or wherever you download podcasts.
Connect to Fox News Audio and the Fox News app. Listen to hear your favorite hosts like Brian Kilmeade, Jimmy Fallon, and Guy Benson standing up for what's right, live and via podcast. Just click listen, then swipe right and hear the latest news updates on your time. And scroll down to hear the latest podcasts from Fox News. And it's even easier to listen in the car with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Get programming alerts and notifications. Fox News Audio is on the Fox News app. The voices America trusts. Download it now.
The Klitzkie brothers from Ukraine were both heavyweight champions of the world. Now they are fighting to save their homeland from the Russian invasion.
Brothers Vitaly and Vladimir Klitzkie appearing on Fox's Sunday Morning Futures with Maria Bartiromo to discuss the Russian invasion of their country. Vitaly is now the mayor of the capital city of Kyiv, which to this point has withstood and repelled Russian forces. He made it very clear what is needed to continue the effort.
We need the weapons. We need support with the weapons.
Vladimir Klitzkie is now a member of the Ukrainian Defense Force and says the war will stop when the Russian economy does.
You have to stop trading because every cent that Russia is getting, they're using for weapons to kill the civilians.
And he reminded the world of his country's pledge.
Ukrainian anthem says we are going to lay down our souls and bodies for our freedom.
Kevin Uretsky, Fox News.
President Biden might be proposing a wealth tax in his new budget proposal.
The president is expected to announce his proposal on Monday. The plan would include a so-called billionaire minimum income tax, a proposal that would tax Americans worth more than $100 million, a minimum of 20%, on not only stated income, but unrealized gains on stock holdings. The tax would reportedly raise up to $360 billion over the next 10 years. According to a fact sheet from the White House Budget Office, it would cut projected deficits by more than $1 trillion over the next decade. Sue Guzman, Fox News.
Scientists say they now know the reason why vampire bats are the only mammals that can live off of just blood. Fox's Ted Lindner has the report.
The vampire bats, described as living Draculas, live in South and Central America and are about 3 inches long with a wingspan of 7 inches. Scientists compared the genome of common vampire bats to 26 other bat species and identified 13 genes that are missing or no longer work in these vampire bats. Over the years, those gene tweaks help them adapt to a blood diet rich in iron and protein.
I'm Laura Cantor, and this is Fox News.
Listen to The Point anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you.
Find your favorite stations like The Point and discover more. Music stations, local and trusted news sources, sports talk and team coverage, plus today's biggest podcasts. Find it all on the Odyssey app. AUDACY.
Your new News Talk headquarters.
You're on the air.
This could be very interesting.
The next level.